Kia ora, good evening. Welcome to the Eye in the Sky Show podcast. Tonight I would like to talk about Elisa Lam. This is something that I talked about in December of 2021. I will put the links to the Instagram posts that I made up in the description box below. I have noticed when I was writing my notes out from my Instagram page, I made some spelling and grammatical errors, so please forgive me. I was teaching a class at 6 o'clock in the morning. I must have obviously just woken up. I think I had actually had a dream, if I remember rightly, but I know that when I woke up, I felt drawn to talk about it with my two students who ended up. What I've discovered while rewriting this thing out from my Instagram page, it's a lot for me to take on board, I have to be honest, because I've realised something while I was rewriting out the notes taken from my Instagram page to present in this podcast that is quite disturbing and affects me personally. She called for me to be my next subject matter for the podcast, and I think I understand why it had been on my mind to do her next. And when I went through my notes to take things off my notes from my Instagram post, I realised that there was something in there that affects me personally that I am going to have to use to give evidence in court when I take my ex-husband and these institutions to court for the injustice that was done against my sons and I will get into that. But I might have to pause because I'm reading from notes, which I've just roughly written out. There's 12 pages of them, but just bear with me because we will get through this. And I'm doing this for Elisa because the things that are being said about her, the things that her parents are having to hear about her, and people's ideas and illogical ways of thinking and the lines of inquiry that they're going down. She deserves to have her reputation cleared up. She deserves to have her time to speak. And as the gatekeeper, as the high priestess, as an occult scientist, as someone who does historical grief investigations, one of the reasons why I do these podcasts and want to go out and make my shows with my boys is for people like Elisa. So everybody knows the story of Elisa, like she's a famous case. So I don't need to go into too much detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out what basically the discussion I was having with my former students when I was explaining why she was doing what she was doing and the reason why it all ended up the way it did. Because as well as that, I am dispelling paranormal, occult and supernatural myths that are going about on the internet about this poor girl and people's lack of knowledge and understanding, and how dangerous it is for people to just automatically go to the dark side of someone's death. The damage it does to the people left behind, to the reputation of the victim, that sort of thing. Like it's unacceptable to me. And so, my work and what I do is to, clear up the fallacies, the lies, the inconsistencies, the defamation, the slander, the egregious smear campaigns of a lot of these victims, or, the hotels or the businesses, or, that sort of thing. I'm here to clear that stuff up, to protect and defend. That's what I do, as well as speak on behalf of the dead, and, the silent living. So to give you a rundown, I've put links in the description box below of the video that I watched when I was gathering my information, when I was getting the class together, the notes for my class together. I'll put a link in the description box of the exact video. This is no judgment on the person who made the video. My intention is for the video of her and the observations that he made, I'm going to clear up. But this, people know what they know, and he thought he knew, and a lot of people have opinions on this case, but I'm going to clear it up. So in his video, he points out some things that clear up a lot of misunderstanding. Well, he doesn't, sorry. The video that he shows, points out things that clear up a lot of misunderstandings. So she stayed at the Cecil Hotel on the 5th floor, and the video shows her on the 10th floor. She wasn't meant to be on the 10th floor. The Cecil Hotel is famous for people staying there to commit suicide, and there's been a lot of murders in that there. And she went there because, in her own words, it was a must-see experience. It's where Richard Ramirez stayed, the Night Stalker. It's famous for a lot of very dark things that happened there, and she wanted to go there. It was like a dream of hers to go and stay at the Cecil Hotel to investigate it, because she was into the paranormal and the supernatural, and in her own words, she said it was a must-see experience. People make assumptions about the occult and blame it on so much stuff is blamed on the occult as much as what aliens are blamed on things. It's like, if you can't explain it, it's got to be aliens or the occult. But if you watch the video, her body language explains everything. And if you look into her background, you'll understand more about who she is and the way her mind was. The other people in her room said she was acting strange before she went up there, like in the sort of day and a half, 2 days before she got to the hotel, before, like when she was in the hotel, and that she was very excited, but she was acting strange. She had gone off her medication because she said that she wanted to soak up the experience. She wanted to feel normal so that she could absorb the energy and get a feel for the hotel. These are her words. She wanted to live the experience and soak in all the atmosphere. So she went off her medication, which people weren't too happy about, but she was adamant that she was going to go off it, so that when she got to the hotel, she could live the experience and just soak it all in, see if she could have any paranormal or supernatural experiences, and just soak up the history of the hotel. She went off her medication and she started acting weird. She was on medication for bipolar 1 and depression, but she wasn't taking it. And what you see her doing, and her strange movements with her arms when she steps into the elevator, is suggested that it's suggested in the video that it's a sign of apprehension, but it's actually a sign of bipolar 1. A symptom of bipolar 1 is where you have elevated or exaggerated movements when you get excited. When you get hyperactive, you can get hyperactive when you have bipolar 1, and so you can have exaggerated movements and elevated mood, so you move around a lot. The guy in the video says she's playing with the buttons like she couldn't make out where she wanted to go, and doesn't realise she pushed the door open button, which helps her open for a bit. She was unsure where she wanted to go, so she was playfully taking her chances. Bipolar 1 symptoms include taking risks and erratic behaviour. She was happy and excited because she was living the dream of being able to explore the hotel, and that's evident in her body language. When the door closes is where the guy in the video gets it wrong. He said something catches her eye and she freezes in a panic after looking out the door, concentrating on the right side. She freezes in fear, seeing something that terrifies her. But that's where everyone gets it wrong. She thought someone on the outside of the elevator had pressed the button to get in, and when they didn't get in, she heard something and thought she was in trouble. Because she was on the 10th floor, she wasn't supposed to be on the 10th floor. She was in the part of the hotel that had private rooms for private guests, and she was staying in a dorm on the 5th floor, so she shouldn't have been there. And when she pressed the button, when she pressed all those buttons, she pressed the door open button and it kept it open for a while. So when she pressed all the buttons in her excitement, she didn't realise she'd pressed the door open button, and because it kept the door open, she had assumed that someone on the other side had pressed the button. And when they didn't get on the elevator, that's when she thought she was in trouble. So she heard something and she kind of like looks out thinking she was going to get caught for being on the floor she wasn't supposed to be on. And then when the doors didn't close, she froze because she thought she was in trouble. So like she presses all the buttons, the doors don't close. She's thinking, oh, someone must have pressed the button to get on the elevator. And when they didn't get on the elevator, she thought, oh my God, they've caught me, I'm in trouble. And so she froze in fear, like she got scared because she thought the hotel employees had caught her being on the floor she wasn't supposed to be on. And so she when she realized that no one was getting onto the elevator, she naturally assumed that the hotel staff were waiting for her to come out of the elevator so that they could grab her and take her out of the elevator and possibly out of the hotel. She had said that she wanted a clear head to absorb the experience. She didn't like how the medication made her feel, and but that she had never had any intentions to kill herself. She had always, because people were worried about her, a lot of people feared when she had her depressive bouts that she could be suicidal, but suicide was never ever a thought in her mind. And apparently she used to reassure people like, I think because as well some people thought that she was going to the hotel to kill herself because it was famous for suicides and that as well. And she kept reassuring people, that's not my intention, that's not what I'm here for. I want to live this experience because like I've wanted to come here for a long time. And she was really excited about going there. For her, it was like she was doing like a paranormal investigation. She was doing like an investigation. She wanted to live the experience. She was into the paranormal. She was, she was into the spiritual. And like most investigators and most people that are into that sort of thing, a place like the Cecil Hotel is like a mecca for paranormal and supernatural and unexplained experiences. And she just didn't want her medication interfering with her logic and the way she understood her experiences and what she was hoping to experience. Because from when I looked at her and studied her life outside of her death, it sounds like she's like me in the fact that she's fascinated by human behaviour. She likes to try and understand people and why they are the way they are and why they do the things they do, which is why she went to that hotel. She wanted to live the experience and try and understand it from a paranormal, supernatural point of view, but also from a spiritual point of view, and also from like the study of the human behavior point of view, because she was actually a very astute young lady, very, very smart. But when it came to human behavior, she was fascinated by the way people act and the way people are. And that's one of the reasons why she wanted to go to that hotel. And that's something that nobody ever brings up about her. They never bring up her human side and who she was before her, quote unquote mysterious death. So of course I'm letting people know who she was outside of the Cecil Hotel. She had apparently said that for the first time in her life she felt free. When she went off her med, she said she felt free. And she was just wanting to live that human experience of a place that was famous for so much death, and with people like Richard Ramirez and that staying there. I mean, it's like a historical point of interest. She was so happy to be where she was, and she kept saying that she was living out her dream. Um, People keep saying that the suicides there are unexplained and mysterious, but it's just like the San Francisco Bridge and the suicide forest, which I just did the video on. It has a high success rate. There's nothing paranormal or mysterious about it. It's just that when you're determined to end your life, you go somewhere where you know there's going to be like a higher success rate, unfortunately, and that hotel has a high success rate in the eyes of people who are not thinking clearly because they're at their lowest state. But this is where it gets interesting. I say that a lot. That should be the name of my when I have my radio station. I should name my slot when I do my late night talk back supernatural occult, radio slot. I should call it. Now this is where it gets interesting. Because I say that in every video, but it's like I love this work so much, but I love what I do so much, and I love finding these little things and bringing a different perspective to these paranormal and supernatural situations that nobody's contemplated or seen or thought of before. Because when you expand your mind, you change your perspective, and changing your perspective can change your life. So so I should call it, this is where it gets interesting. So when she doesn't see anyone, she thinks they're waiting to pounce on her when she steps out. So as she steps to the side to hide, she's thinking, like, because obviously I'm reading her body language and the energy that's coming off her, she's thinking to herself, if they don't see me, maybe they'll think they've made a mistake. Like maybe they'll think, there can't be anyone on that elevator. Like it must just be, like the doors have opened or whatever. That's what she's thinking. She does this thing where she holds her two fingers. She holds her fingers, and people think that it's a sign of anxiousness, or that she's giving clues to how many people are out there, or that she's doing black magic, believe it or not, because the occult gets blamed for everything. But the thing is, by her holding her fingers, she's holding her own hand. She's self-soothing. She's scared and she thinks she's in trouble. And because of this, she's now had a rise of dopamine and cortisol, and her bipolar 1's kicked in, which has been spiked from the fear of thinking she's going to get caught. And now the paranoia kicks in and she's overthinking. She's thinking to herself, what will my parents say? Will she get deported out of America? Will she go to jail? Will she ruin her career if it goes on her record? Will my parents be disappointed? And that sort of thing. So she's holding her own hand to try and remain calm. The longer no one steps forward, the more she's scared and irrationality kicks in, and she's thinking, oh wait, this is the Cecil Hotel. It's got to be a paranormal event, or someone evil, or someone's trying to hurt me, because now her bipolar 1 has kicked in, so she's not thinking clearly. She's thinking irrational thoughts. And then she panics, and that triggers an unknown symptom of bipolar 1 that causes impaired vision or temporary blindness. So, when people, when she's feeling around and you can see her, it's like she's reaching out for something, she bends down. It's because that she's been blinded by fear. She's got that blind fear. And that's a symptom of bipolar 1, is that you can have temporary blindness. And impaired vision. Now, a lot of people believe that water and mirrors trap negative energy. But there's no scientific basis or merit for this, other than the fact that unless it's holy water or sacred land, you can put haunted objects or cursed objects in blessed water or sacred land. But to put it in like a glass of water or a bath or anything like that, there's no merit for it. The water doesn't trap the negative energy, it actually absorbs it, which is why I keep saying to people, don't have spiritual baths, because all you're doing is washing whoever it is that's given it to you. You're passing that on to Papa Tuanuku, and she's absorbing your negative energy, because water can take on energy. That's why you don't have electrical things near baths. You put electricity near bath water, while you're in the bath, you're going to kill yourself. So, a lot of people mistakenly believe that if you put something that's cursed or negative or demonic or evil or whatever in water, that it's going to trap the energy and get rid of it for you. But it doesn't. It actually just holds it. It doesn't go anywhere, it just holds it. And if it's in like a large body of water, like say a pool or a bath, or like with Elisa, it holds it. I mean, energy spreads, and the smaller the containment, it doesn't trap it, it just holds it. And the water's got to be released at some point, um, and so it just transfers it, so it doesn't get rid of negative energy, it just holds it. You have to get rid of the negative energy off you, and the only way to do that is through raising your vibration and the sun. You could put something negative in a glass of water and wait for the sun to evaporate the water, but then it's going to be trapped in the glass. Like the glass is going to hold it, there'll be residue of it in the glass, and then you'd have to get rid of the glass. So it's never going to go anywhere. But this belief comes from the indigenous belief that water and mirrors and cameras trap the souls of the dead. That's why Māori people, when we have tangies, when someone dies, we take the mirrors out of the room where the body's going to be laid to rest, so that their soul, their spirit doesn't get trapped in the mirror, because you want them to move on to eternity. And why Aboriginal people don't like their photos being taken when they're performing, sacred rituals and that, because they believe that the camera's going to capture their soul. So that's where that belief comes from, but it's not true. The water's not going to remove the negative energy. But I'm saying all of this because of the fact that she went and took herself up to that water tower, believing that if she hopped in it, not only could she hide from what she thought was chasing her, once she thought it was something demonic or evil trying to hurt her, she thought, if I hop into the water, the whatever it is that's trying to come for me can't hurt me, because I'll be in the water. But because by that point, adrenaline had kicked in, her dopamine and cortisol levels were playing up, she wasn't thinking properly, her bipolar 1 had completely kicked in, she wasn't thinking straight, she was exhausted. She hopped into that tank thinking not only was she going to be able to hide, but that she would be able to protect herself from what she thought, quote unquote, was now after her, when she irrationally thought, if it's not hotel employees, it must be someone evil or negative. She drowned from the exhaustion, because, by that point, see, because with one of the symptoms of bipolar 1 is that you sleep less and less and less and less. And because she was off her medication and that, she would have been utterly exhausted. So, by the time she got up there and went to hide and protect herself, she was too exhausted to maintain any sort of amount of energy to get herself out of it, and she drowned. But because water and mirrors capture reflections, It's supposed to ricochet between the energy. It's supposed to ricochet between the mirror and the water's surface, because what a lot of people do is they will like haunted mirrors or haunted objects. This is a really common practice. They'll put the item that they think is possessed in water, and then put a mirror upside down on top of the item in order to keep it under the water and to trap the spirit, because it's supposed to ricochet. The energy is supposed to ricochet between the mirror and the water's surface like a tennis ball on light speed, until it turns into the light it's reflecting itself off, but it is psychosomatic. Um, Doing that sort of thing only works because you think it does. That necessarily isn't a bad thing if it's helping you get rid of what you think is possessing you or haunting you or causing you trouble. That's not a bad thing. But where it's not good is the fact that you're dealing with water, and land and earth, and that's Papa Tuanuku, that's grandmother, because it's good for you, but it's not good for the planet. It's not good for her, because the energy has to go somewhere, and if you're trapping it inside her waters, then you're trapping it inside her. And so, like when I go out and make my shows with my boys, because I'm going to be dealing with people who are have a lot of perceived cursed objects and that sort of thing. I'm going to offer to take them and put them in my museum at the Alchemist Cavern, and then I will bless them, because I am an ordained minister and I am a high priestess. And if I have to use water, I'm going to know how to do it properly. But a lot of these people are going to have objects that they're not going to know what to do with, and if they come to me, I'm going to know what to do. And because it's all going to be on camera, because we're making these shows for you all to see, you'll be able to see how I do it, so then you can do it yourself, or you can do it for your friends and family when they think that they have perceived cursed objects as well. I'm going to show people how to do this stuff properly, where it's safe for the environment, where it doesn't hurt Papa Tuanuku, Grandmother Earth, and where it doesn't hurt the people who believe that they have a demonic attachment or a curse or a evil spirit. So this is the bit when I was talking at the start of the video that's quite upsetting, because in writing all of this stuff out, I've realised something, a correlation, a direct connection between Elisa Lam and what happened to me with my ex-husband and his cult, what they tried to do to me. And the realisation has been a bit hard to take on board. But the truth is the truth, and when I take this to court, this is going to be undeniable as well, because of the fact that my phone was hacked, and now I have evidence, substantial evidence, like it's undeniable proof now with finding that second SIM card on my phone, that my phone was hacked and they were watching everything that I was doing. They could see everything I was typing, they could see everything I was doing, and they were watching me like a hawk. And some of them were using my Instagram posts and that to do tarot readings on their channels. And this next bit, basically what's happened is I've just realised that through them watching the work that I was doing, they've tried to recreate in me what happened to Elisa Lam, and I'm going to explain it. And this is, I really have no words. People with bipolar 1 have at least one manic episode that is preceded or followed by hypermanic or depressive episodes. In some cases, mania can trigger a break from reality or psychosis. Now remember, they tried to say I had psychosis, that I was having a psychotic episode, that I had a break from reality that night when I said that he had laced my pizza and that he had hacked my phone and that my life was in danger. And I wasn't wrong about any of it, because he put cocaine in my pizza and there was not diazepam, there was opioids in the weed um, that I was given that night, um, to have what's called a speedball, because I had to do all the research and all of this because I had no clue. And the symptoms of speedballs, like cocaine mixed with opioids, gives you the same exact effect as what Elisa had that night and what people with bipolar 1 have. And I think that they tried to recreate a medically induced psychotic episode so that they could claim that I was mentally unstable, so that I would then go and be assessed for a mental disorder, with maybe they were hoping the doctors would say I had bipolar disorder or bipolar 1 or something. But what actually happened was the nurses there defended me and said to the doctors, there's nothing wrong with her. There is no change in her behaviour. She is no threat to anyone. She is not violent. She is not irrational. She's not doing anything that is causing us to think that she's a danger to herself or anyone else. And you need to get her off that medication. And finally, the fourth doctor listened and said, right, okay, we'll take it off her for 2 weeks and see how she goes, and if she's fine after that, we'll let her go. Of course, after those 2 weeks, the nurses said there's no change. I know this for a fact because the nurses, who I will worship to the day I die, staff there, Sally and Jody, came and told me when I found out that I was going off the medication. They came and they were so happy for me. They were hugging me and they were so happy for me. And they said, we keep saying, why is she here? We don't know why she's here. The whole time I was there, the nurses couldn't figure it out. And the nurses started speaking up when I was being starved of food, when I was being medically neglected, when my scars split open from the medication I was being forced to take for the quote unquote psychosis, because they never took into account, even though they knew I had cocaine in my system, because they kept asking me, do you take cocaine? Do you take any opioids? And I'm like, no, I keep a clean vessel. I don't have any chemicals anywhere near my body. But they keep saying, are you sure you don't take cocaine? And I said to my sister, that's what he put on my pizza. That's why it had that sharp kind of chemically taste. He put cocaine in my pizza and he knew it, and that's why he threw it on the bed and said, I've got to go, and ran so fast down the stairs he put a hole in the wall. And it was that behaviour then. I was like, why is he acting like he's running from the bloody devil? And then I realised he's put something in my pizza, and then of course the chemicals kicked in, and that's when I locked everything up and I thought he's literally just tried to poison me. And so I had every right to think that my life was in danger. And then that's when my boys came out with those weapons. And when he came back to that house, my youngest with the crowbar, he was gonna take that crowbar to his father, because by that point my sons knew that their dad had just tried to feed their mother drugs in order to hurt her. And then of course, as I said to the police, when I started watching all my old videos, I realized that in some of my videos I'm talking really fast, and I'm losing my train of thought. And Chris kept telling the doctors at the hospital that I wasn't sleeping, but I was sleeping perfectly fine. It's just, as I said to the doctors in the hospital, I go to bed early and I wake up early. I get all my chores done, I have my workout, and then I like to leave my days for my boys, so that, I'm not busy, doing chores and having my workouts and that. I like to spend all my free time with my boys once they're awake. And so whatever he was telling them about me not sleeping was completely not true, because everybody who knows me knows that I'm always passed out by like 8-9 o'clock usually, because of the fact that I'm up early, and I have my workouts and that by like 5 o'clock in the morning, because then I get my housework out the way so that when my babies wake up, the day is theirs with me, and then we can concentrate on their schoolwork and having fun and playing games. And because we were never allowed to leave the house, I had to make their waking moments interesting for them because of the fact that we weren't allowed to just leave the house. He wouldn't let us. So I think they were trying to recreate a medically induced form of psychosis so that he could ring and say, oh, she's lost her mind, she's aggressive, because he said to the police when he rang the police, she's in a distressed state. And one of the symptoms with the, I'll just read it out. In some cases, mania may trigger a break from reality or psychosis. Bipolar 2 is not a milder form, but a separate disorder. Bipolar 1 manic episodes can be severe and dangerous, and people with bipolar 2 have depression for longer. And because they have longer periods of depression, it causes significant mental and physical impairment. So they were trying to create a medically induced form of bipolar disorder. Mania and hypomania are two distinct types of episodes, but they have the same symptoms. Mania is more severe than hypomania and causes more noticeable symptoms. Mania can trigger psychosis and require hospitalization, which is what he did to me that night. Both mania and hypomania include 3 or more symptoms, like being abnormally upbeat, because he said I was crazy because I'd found God. Because I'd found God, I was happy. Can you believe that? Which is why I keep saying the hospital, it's bigotry and racism, that they were saying that my psychosis, I was psychotic because I was happy because I found God, because I loved what I was doing, because I was building a future for my boys. I was happy, therefore that must be psychosis. So when he rang and said I was in a distressed state and that I had weapons, which was a lie, and my boys, I'm going to put them on the stand to testify, and the videos are there, you can clearly see that night that I was in no such state, nor was I barricaded in their rooms. You can see us clearly downstairs in the living room, as well as upstairs in the boys' bedroom, and we're walking around the house freely, and I am walking around the house freely, not in a distressed state at all. So you're abnormally upbeat, you can be jumpy, increased hyperactivity, increased energy and agitation, exaggerated sense of well-being, self-confidence, euphoria, insomnia, talkativeness, racing thoughts, distracted, poor decision-making, and you do silly things like because you're not so you'll go on shopping sprees and you'll take sexual risks and make foolish financial investments. All the things that I've just described are all the symptoms that you get when you have speedballs, when you take cocaine and opioids together. Cocaine gives you those symptoms, and cocaine is what they kept asking me, did I have in my body? And I believe that when I look back on some of those videos, I said to the police, my words are slurred. Even on my Instagram page, I keep talking about how I was tripping over a lot, like I was wobbly on my feet, and I couldn't understand it. But then, of course, now that I've been able to talk to the police, and I said to them, look, here's links to these videos. If you watch them, you'll see, because I kept having this cough I couldn't get rid of, and I was getting paler skin, like my skin was getting whiter and whiter, and I joke about it on my Instagram about how white I'm looking. But of course now, in hindsight, I know that's because he was feeding me the cocaine, the stuff that they were putting in that weed. They were slowly trying to poison my system so that I would give off these behaviors that would give the impression that I had either bipolar 1 or bipolar 2, mania or hypomania, so that when when he was ready to call the police to get me taken away, he could say, these are her symptoms, this is what she's doing. So then the doctors would, feed on my blood like a shark and say it's psychosis. But the thing is, they never diagnosed me with anything other than psychosis. And even the couple of good doctors that weren't racist, bigoted dickheads even said maybe the psychosis is just because weed can cause psychosis. And I kept saying to them, no, he fed me something because he was trying to get rid of me, and I stuck to my word. And like, they didn't like the fact that I was arguing with them, because I know what I know. I knew what I knew. I put two and two together and came up with four. And now I'm finding this, and interestingly, the two students that I'm talking to, one of them, Michelle Grant, is one of the ones that teamed up with my ex-husband and my ex-best friend. And, when I was heartbroken about losing my best friend, she kept trying to steer me away from the conversation of him. Like, she was pushing me away from him, trying to get me to stop wanting to reconcile with him. I was trying to reach out to him to reconcile with him, and she kept distracting me away from it. And she kept trying to tell me about these dreams that made no sense to her spiritual growth or reality in that. And of course, when I put two and two together, I got rid of her. Like, I knew. I thought, oof, you've got to let God deal with you now, girl, because you've signed your soul over to the devil. And all of this sounds crazy, but now you will see I have the evidence. And now I know that they tried to recreate these symptoms. I don't know whether they thought I would kill myself, that I'd get to such a state that I would kill myself, or in the very least I would be put in hospital. I would never ever kill myself, ever in a million years. I spend my life saving people from even having those sort of thoughts. My upbeat, happy personality comes from the fact that I have the best sons in the whole world. I have a connection to my ancestors that nobody in the world will ever have. I have a gift that is supernaturally awesome, and I have lost over 220 pounds. So I now have energy. I now have a muscular, athletic, curvy body. I have men asking me out every other day. Whereas before I was so fat, I left an imprint in my mattress that made it look like the chalk outline of a crime scene, and I found God again. And it's that simple. And they've tried to say that all of that was a mental illness. She's gone crazy because she's found God, because she's so happy, because she's so upbeat, because she loves life. That's got to be psychosis. It must be a mental illness. So how sad is that? And I didn't realize any of this until I felt this need to talk about Elisa Lam. So I hope I'm helping her, because she's definitely helped me. Because when I take all of this to court, it's undeniable now. I have got a sample of that weed still to be tested. I gave some to the police, but I don't know what's happening with that. But I kept a sample. I was smart enough to keep a sample, and I will get it tested. And I also will get the results, ask for the results of the blood test, because I demanded a blood test the second the police turned up, and I said I want it on record now. He's put something in my weed. And the way that the police officer reacted, I knew that they knew that I had drugs in my system. I don't know what he told them exactly, but the way she reacted, she couldn't understand. Like, her body language was such that when I was saying he's done this, he said this, blah blah blah, hasn't he? The way she reacted to it, I knew she knew I knew what they knew. And she was trying not to give anything away. And I said to her, I can tell from your body language, I'm telling the truth. And she didn't know what to say. She kept looking away. That was on body camera too. So I'm going to play that camera in court, because you can clearly see I'm not in any of those states that, these symptoms that he said I had. I'm not in any of it. I'm just so glad I listened to my intuition and recorded everything and documented everything, um, because now I'm going to throw it all back at him and those doctors in court. But I am so grateful to people like Sally and Jody and Sam and that at the hospital that stuck up for me and defended me, um, because when you know you're telling the truth, when you know you're the victim of a crime, of a really despicable crime that is hurting your children, that has been done on purpose to hurt you and your children on purpose, so that they can take from you and make you feel like you are less than, and you are yelling and screaming and shouting to the police and social services and the doctors to be listened to, and you are not being heard, and in fact you are being punished more. When somebody like a nurse comes along and says, I believe you, it made the world of difference to me. It made me get that extra bit of energy and strength to fight the system, which is what I'm doing now. And then since then, I've been getting more and more and more and more evidence, and finding that second SIM card on my phone now is irrefutable proof that I was telling the truth and that it wasn't psychosis, it was truth. So this is where Elisa Lam and I, our stories have kind of crossed. She's helped me and I've helped her. So anyway, in her panicked, unmedicated bipolar state, she had trouble seeing and trying to compose herself. In case someone was out there, she was showing vulnerability to appeal to the mercy of the hotel staff. She thinks she's been caught, and when there's no reciprocation, she assumes it's demonic and flees to hide. She hides in the one place she thought it couldn't find her, which was the water tank, because by that point she'd lost her senses and she drowned because she was exhausted and hit a low in her depression. She was a victim of thinking she could control her bipolar disorder and depression, and it led to her death. In the video, she raises her shoulders, and people say it was to protect her neck, but she's doing it to brace herself for a fight or a jump scare. She's bracing herself, thinking she's going to be lunged at or grabbed, where she's then going to be kicked out of the elevator, the floor, or the hotel, because remember, she was somewhere she shouldn't be. The thing I found upsetting is that people were saying about the Cecil Hotel is that it's in close proximity to Skid Row, and making the assumption that people who are homeless or poor are demonic serial killers. Like if you're at Skid Row, then that must be why people around there act strange, and why there's all those demonic possessions and murders and suicides at the hotel, because it's close to Skid Row, and that's just so offensive. Ironically, again, remember they tried to say that I was insane and that I was a danger to my children, and they made me homeless. So they tried to almost like recreate my life with Elisa Lam's, with a medically induced, chemically induced lie, a drug induced lie. People need to understand that through their misunderstanding of what the paranormal and the supernatural is, it can be very damaging to the environment, to the people involved, to the victims' families. Like, it causes a lot of harm when you mess around with things and ideologies that you know nothing about. It's very dangerous. And so I'm here with my science and my little podcast and one day my shows, to show people how to do it right. There's nothing wrong with investigating, perceived paranormal activity. Just go into it knowing what it is you're actually dealing with, because I promise you that when you actually understand the truth of what the paranormal really is, it's so much cooler. Because ghosts and hauntings, I'm not talking about poltergeist activity and that, which is caused by psychological disorders and that, but what a ghost and what a haunting really is supernatural, and the supernatural is awesome. You're talking about, time merging. You're talking about time travel, real time travel, and real time blends and time merges that you're witnessing. That's way cooler than thinking that somebody's died and crossed over and, walking the hallways banging chains. Like the supernatural is way cooler, like the physics of death and the consciousness attached to atoms that are stored throughout the creation and evolution of time within our universe is way more fascinating than thinking somebody's died and come back and going, ooh, in your bedroom chamber. So, this is why I'm doing what I do, because I'm trying to show people a more light-hearted way, a more logical way, a more fun way, a cooler way to see our universe and how it all works. Because what's been out there so far is doing more harm than good. It's putting the fear in people that doesn't need to be there. That hotel needs a deep spiritual cleanse. I even in my Instagram I said to them, I'll do it when I get over there. I'll come there with my boys. Bring my. By then I hadn't invented it properly, like I hadn't developed it, knowing how I was going to build it. I'll bring my BFG and I'll clear everything out. Um, she wants to speak her truth and help her parents mend their broken hearts. She wants people to know that she wasn't suicidal, she wasn't cursed, she wasn't possessed, she wasn't demonic, she wasn't any of that. She was just a victim of someone trying to live a normal life without the medication that was making her feel bad. And unfortunately, because of that, because she wasn't thinking clearly, because she was off her medication, and I mean, the thing is, I know I could work with people like that and help them not need their medication, because I would know to work with their I would work with their biorhythmics, so that, when they had their moments of paranoia and, irrational fears and that sort of thing, their overthinking and that, I would know exactly how to show them how to recalibrate their biorhythmic frequency, so that they would have less and less episodes, so that when they did have those episodes, they would know how to deal with them properly and without the need of medication. But I'm not saying anything other than, she was trying to live a normal life. She just wanted to be normal. She wanted to go there and have an experience that she had been wanting to have for a very long time, and as a result, from not taking the medication, not looking after herself, it led to her death. And now, because of it, everybody's jumped on this bandwagon of, mysterious, unexplained death, must be possessed, must be cursed, and it was none of that. She was a victim of her own doing, and she needs to be respected, as do her family, and she needs to be remembered for who she was before she went to that hotel, and not who she was once her body was taken out of it, because that's not who she was. And it's unfair for people to make all these assumptions about her, when she just was wanting to go there and do what everybody else does when they go there, which was experience, the paranormal and supernatural history of the Cecil Hotel, not realizing when she went there she was going to end up becoming a part of it. So the other thing I said is, I should point out that the two fingers that she's holding isn't just for self-soothing. It's the two fingers most commonly used for scolding someone, and she was expecting to be told off, so she was reassuring herself that she wasn't in trouble. She was trying to restrain herself. The positions of her fingers being held by the fingers holding them are those of a child needing the other side of her to take control. It's a primal instinctual response. And because she's from an Asian culture, from an Asian background, she comes from a culture where acts of rebellion can be seen as a dishonor to the ancestors as well as her parents. And that's not fear on her face, it's anticipation. She was afraid of what was going to happen next because she thought she had been caught being in a part of the hotel she wasn't supposed to be in because it was for private room guest only, and she thought that the employees of the hotel were coming to grab her. And I'll put links in the description box below. You can see the Instagram post. Just please mind the grammatical errors and spelling mistakes because it was 6 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, I don't know what to say other than I hope this clears this up for her family. I hope this brings them some peace. Um, she has always been in the back of my mind since I did that article for the class back in December 2021. And she's been popping up in my mind for the last few days. And then I thought, oh, I'll just go in and have a look and, scribble some notes down so that I'm not having to like reinvestigate everything that I'd already written down. And then that's when I made the discovery that her and I have something in common, except my demon's real and I was married to him. And now I'm an inch closer to getting him carted away in handcuffs and getting a lawsuit, because as I told those doctors, I'm going to play this game, but I will not stop until my name is cleared and I get justice and my boys are back with me, because we were made to suffer because of that man's mental instability. He's the one that was diagnosed with a mental illness back in Liverpool, Royal Liverpool Hospital, back in the early 2000s, and the police are investigating that because I told them about it. But yeah, so I kind of have to thank Elisa, because if I hadn't have followed my instincts to re-look at the class that I'd given to the students in regards to her, I wouldn't have found a direct correlation between what happened to her and what they tried to fake happening to me, because the evidence is undeniable. I've got everything on video, my slurred speech, my laughing about how I keep stumbling, my skin going white. I've even got a conversation with my sister where she was saying, when I told her he put cocaine in the pizza, that he was feeding me cocaine and the opioids and speedballing me, she goes, well, that makes a lot of sense now, because you kept talking really fast. And, she said, when we were talking, you kept talking really fast and it was like you were hyperactive. And she said, but now that makes perfect sense. So I'll be taking that conversation to court, because then obviously once all the drugs got out of my system, which in hospital, I think it took about 7 days for the chemical taste to get out of my mouth and about 10, 12 days for everything to just completely calm down and go back to normal. Because all the drugs were out of my system, everything went away, and the nurses and that just kept saying, there's nothing wrong with her. We don't know why she's here. But then one of the doctors said, I can't let you go because I'll be letting you go out onto the street. So as soon as you get money coming in and as soon as we can get you registered to get a place, we'll let you go. But they were still trying to get me to take the medication, but it was the Sally and that, it was the nurses that kept saying she doesn't need it, there's nothing wrong with her. So then of course when I left, I didn't need medication, I didn't need follow-ups, I don't have a diagnosis on my record, like it was all removed, because the nurses knew. So I will be getting these nurses to come to court and give evidence. And yeah, so Elisa Lam, in reinvestigating this case for my podcast, she's enlightened me to something that I didn't see before, that I can't unsee now. And now that I've made it public, when this goes to court, like, it's going to be a bombshell. It's a bombshell, because it's there in my own writing and it's there in my own videos. the correlation between the two is unbelievable. They tried to chemically induce a mental disorder in order to get me removed from my children and from my business and my empire so that they could take it for themselves and claim to be the heroes, when in actual fact they were the villains and I was a victim of victim shaming, victim blaming by police, social services. Like, my reputation was dragged through the mud. My work was dragged through the mud. My people, my ancestors, was dragged through the mud, mocked, ridiculed, medicated, ignored, damaged, slandered. So, yeah. Anyway, don't worry about me though. Onwards and upwards. I'm loving every minute of this new life. I'm just waiting to get my boys back, and they're the cherry on top. They're the icing on the cake. Once we get justice, I get my boys, and then we can go and we can make these shows, and I can show you how to deal with the paranormal and the supernatural on video so that you can do it yourself. Because the more people out there that I teach and educate, the less work I have to do myself. So once I can show you all how to do it, and once you've all got my biorhythmic field generators, in the mail coming to your house so that you can go to these places and turn them on and do what I'm going to teach you to do with them, then we're all working together to raise the vibration of the planet and to remove these places of the activity that people keep flocking to in order to make light of the death and suffering that have gone on in these places for profit, for fame, for likes and subscribes and views and blah, blah, blah. And together we can raise the vibration and heal the planet and do our bit for humanity and help us evolve a little faster. So, that's what I'm here for. I will leave links in the description box below. I will speak to you soon. Ka kite anō. Mwah.